Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at elithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to elithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and in today's class I'm going to be showing you how to use the wget utility in Linux to be able to send commands to your Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi. Now hold on a minute, let me explain before the old timers start telling me how stupid I am for using wget to be able to send commands to my Arduino. Let me explain why we are doing it this way. So when I try to teach you folks classes, I try to make the classes as simple as possible. As I've talked about before, one of the big problems I find with technology education is that instructors basically try to dump too much information on you at one time. You don't know what you should focus on, which means you get confused about all of it, and at the end of the day, you give up. Again, most people do not fail. Most people give up. They just say, I can't hack it. I'm done. The problem there is that the instructor has put too much information on you, hasn't explained enough about what's going on, and so of course you're confused. It's not that you're dumb or stupid, it's just the information has been presented in such a way that it's incredibly confusing, and so only the really intelligent people will be able to follow along, not because you have to be intelligent to understand the information, it's because you have to be intelligent to decipher this ball of crap that your instructor has just given you. So when I try to teach you things, I try to make it as simple as possible. So I've been doing a lot of classes talking about PHP, talking about MySQL, again, doing Arduino, basic LAMP servers, that type of thing. And so I was looking at a way in order to be able to send commands to our little Arduino devices in the simplest way possible. So if you're used to using PHP, there is an addition called something called curl, but curl is kind of its own little world. That's like a product that you kind of have to learn and you kind of have to understand. Obviously, Python or JavaScript are also ways that you could basically send commands using something like a URL, but that would be another thing that I'd have to explain to you and show you how that works, right? That would be a whole new list of classes. And so I was sitting there thinking, okay, well, we already know PHP, we already know all of this basic stuff, again, the Linux servers, that type of thing. So with the information that you currently have available, that is relatively simple, how could we send commands to an Arduino using a URL that really doesn't require a lot of additional learning? And then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, what about the wget utility? So the wget utility in Linux, generally what it's used for is to go out onto the network or go out to the internet and do things like grab information from websites or grab files. Basically, it's a way of going out, grabbing data, bringing it back to your server so that you can parse it. Well, curiously enough, in order to go out and actually grab the data, what it has to do is it has to try to connect to the resource that it's trying to pull down. Well, what we're able to do in the class that I'm going to show you today is simply by using wget to try to connect to the resource. Doesn't really matter if there's a website or anything else that's going to be brought down. Basically, that connection, we're able to grab a little bit of information out of the URL we're using to try to connect to the Arduino, and then the Arduino will then perform actions based off of that additional information. So basically, with the little Arduino device we have today, we have a static IP address for it. It's 10.0.1.15, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to do wget. We're going to do a number of tries of 1. I'm going to explain that to you in a second. Number of tries of 1, http://10.0.1.15/ and then we're going to put a command in there. So we're going to say green, or we're going to say red, or we're going to say off, or we're going to say both. And basically what's going to happen is when wget tries to connect to our Arduino to pull in information, although that process there is going to fail out from wget standpoint, it's going to be sending that URL with that information to the Arduino. The Arduino is then going to be able to parse that little additional part on the URL that's been given to it, green, red, both being on or off, and then from that it's going to then fire off a physical event on our little Arduino device. So that is why we are using wget. To be clear, there's a lot of different ways that you could go about trying to connect or basically fire off commands on your Arduino, basically from a URL. We're using wget today because it is so simple to use. There's not a lot of additional things that you have to understand in order to use wget. Again, it's basically wget, the number of tries, what you're trying to connect to with that little command at the end, and that's a pretty simple thing. So that's why we are using wget. So wget is a simple utility, at least how we're using it today. Again, as with all things, you can do much more complicated stuff with it. But basically, all we're going to be using wget for today is almost like a ping command. We're really not going to be doing anything complicated with it. The first thing is that you are going to have to make sure that wget is installed on your distribution of Linux. So I'm using Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. It was not installed by default on that distribution, so all I had to do, sudo apt-get install wget. You run that, you plug in your password, and then it will install. No additional configurations, nothing else. So just sudo apt-get-install wget is what you'll do. That will install it. Then the only warning I will give you for the using the wget to send commands to your Arduino is basically, remember, wget is supposed to be used to be able to pull in data from internet or network-based resources. And so what wget is trying to do is it's basically trying to download a website for you, basically download the information so that you can parse it. Well, since we're connecting to an Arduino, there's not really a website for it to download. And so the important thing to understand is how we're going to be using wget today. Wget itself is actually going to fail out. It's going to try to do what it does. That is going to fail. One of the only problems, one of the only warnings here is by default, wget will continuously, infinitely try to connect to the resource you're telling it to connect to be able to download the information. So this could be very useful if you're trying to download information from a normal website, right? So basically, if it can't connect to it once, it will just continuously keep trying to connect until it is able to connect, pull down the information, and voila, there you go. Well, the thing is with the Arduino, it's never going to pull down the information. That is always going to fail out. So the only thing that you have to change when you're using wget in the way that we're using it today is you have to put the tries to equal 1. So basically what's going to happen is every time you use the wget command, it's going to be hyphen tries equals 1. So it will try to download the data once. If it fails, then it fails. So basically that gives us the result that we want. When we use wget, it will send the request once. When it sends that request, it's sending information that the Arduino on the Arduino side will be able to parse and will do something. But when wget doesn't get the result that it's expecting, it will just fail and nothing additional will happen. So those are the only things to be thinking about today with wget. First, you just may simply have to install it. No big deal. It's in all the repositories. It's old. It's GNU, whatever else. And then 2, do make sure that you do hyphen tries equals 1. That's the only thing that could screw you up. I was dealing with a little Wi-Fi remote control card the other day when I was playing around to see how this would work. And basically, I typed in a command. And then since I didn't do the tries, when I hit enter, it just infinitely kept repeating the command with my little Wi-Fi car. So basically it kept doing what I told it to do continuously, and that runs you into a problem. So do make sure hyphen tries equals 1. That's the big thing to remember from this project. So for the project today, it is very simple. Basically, I have an Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi, and I have 2 LEDs connected to it. I have a green LED connected to it. I have a red LED connected to it. And basically what we're going to be able to do today is using wget, we'll be able to turn the green light on, we'll be able to turn the red light on, we'll be able to turn both lights on, and we'll be able to turn both lights off. So it's a very simple project. But what you do have to understand, again, when you're dealing with Arduino, it's all about ons and offs. So basically what we're doing here is we're doing a digital write to pins 8 and pins 9. certain circumstances we're making them high, certain circumstances we're making them low, certain circumstances we're making them both high, certain circumstances we're making them both low. The important thing just to realize with this is basically we're just turning the digital pins on and off. So right now we have an LED connected to those digital pins, so it'll interact the way LEDs should. Again, in other projects that I've done, I've connected servo motors or continuous servo motors basically to the pins, and so in that circumstance then I'm turning servo motors on. So do just realize with this, I am showing you how to turn LEDs on and off. But again, in the Arduino world, all we're doing is turning things on and off. Whether it's a buzzer, whether it's an LED, or whether it's a motor, it's still just on or off. The only difference is what device you're connecting to the Arduino. So let's go. I'll show you the physical build. There's nothing to it. Basically, two LEDs connected to an Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi. I will then go show you the actual Arduino code itself. Then we will go and we'll actually experiment, and I'll show you how this wget works. So here's the physical build for this project. If you've been following along with Arduino classes, there's literally nothing interesting or complicated here. Basically, I have my little breadboard here. I have a green LED, obviously. I have a red LED. We have the normal little 10K resistors here. Basically, we have them connected. So the green LED is connected to the digital pin 8. The red LED is connected to digital pin 9. Then we have the grounds. Again, the grounds are connected on the breadboard, and then we're going from the breadboard to the ground on the Arduino. So it's just two LEDs connected to an Arduino. That's all there is to it. So let's go over and actually take a look at the Arduino code itself. So here we are taking a look at the Arduino code. A lot of this is the normal stuff for an Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi. One of the big things that we've done here is we're simply doing the read string.index of, and then based what is coming through, we are then doing things. So here, if we get question mark green, we're turning the green LED on and the red LED off. If we get question mark red, we're turning the green LED off and the red LED on. If we get both, we're turning them both on, and if we do off, we're turning them both off, and else, if we get something else, basically we are just getting a problem, and so we can take a look at that and try to troubleshoot that. If you go up and we take a look at this though, just to read through it real quick, the first thing is the only library that we require for this particular project is Wi-Fi 9. So we have the Wi-Fi 9. Again, that's the library for Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi version 2. Then we're going to define two digital pins. Green LED goes to digital 8, red LED goes to digital 9. Past that, we are then going to set the values for the variables in order to connect to our network. So we're going to connect to the basement. So I just have a SSID for basement and a super secret password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, plug in your information. The next thing that I'm doing here is I'm creating the variable for the IP address. Whenever you're dealing with these Arduino Uno projects, do remember they can pull a DHCP address, and they pull a DHCP address quite fine. The problem is then you're not really sure where to send the commands. So if you don't want to rip out the little hair you have left, I would argue for a lot of these projects, especially in the testing phase, do make sure you put in a manual IP address so that you know where the hell your little device is on the network. So IP address, IP 10, so this is going to be 10.0.1.15. Do remember in the Arduino world, when you are setting the IP address, you do have to do these commas there. Past that, we're going to come down here. We're going to have a status for the wireless thing. We just have to put that in for connecting. And then we're going to have a Wi-Fi server. So we're going to have server set to port 80. So basically that you can actually connect to this particular Arduino device using port 80. And then we're going to have the read string variable. The read string variable is going to be used down here so that we can actually interpret the URL and the variable that is being sent to this Arduino device. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to be setting pin modes. So we're going to be setting 3 pin modes. The first one is to the built-in LED. So I actually use the built-in LED as a way to show me on the Arduino itself when it is connected to the Wi-Fi network. So again, one of the big problems is when you have to reboot an Arduino Uno, you don't really know how long it's going to take to boot up and then connect to the Wi-Fi network. So when it's on, it's lonesome. When you have it disconnected from a computer, you don't have the serial monitor. The question is when is it actually connected to the Wi-Fi network? So one of the things that I do here is I do pin mode LED built in. Since it's built in, I don't have to define it. I simply put it to output. And then basically what happens here is after we get through the while loop, I simply turn that particular LED on. So basically when I see that built-in LED turn on, I know it's connected to the Wi-Fi network. Makes my life a lot easier. Pin mode, green LED, we're going to put that to output. Pin mode, red LED, we're going to put that to output. Serial.begin 9600 like normal. Then we're going to do the whole normal connecting to our Wi-Fi network. While status is not connected, it's going to try to connect. It's going to try to pass the SSID and password. If it doesn't connect, it's going to delay for 10 seconds, and it's going to keep looping. Again, once we actually connect to the Wi-Fi network, we are going to digital write to that built-in LED light, and we're going to turn it on so we know what's going on here. Wi-Fi config, so we're going to give it the IP address we defined up here. So we're going to have that as the IP address, and server.begin, so we're actually starting that server service. Then serial.print, so in the serial monitor, we're going to print out the SSID, the IP address, so on and so forth. Then we're going to go down and we're actually going to take a look at the loop. So most of this is basically the standard copy and paste. So all of this right here, whenever you're using the Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi and it's going to be providing some kind of like a web-based server service, basically you're just going to copy and paste this in here. So Wi-Fi client equals server.available. If a client connects, it's going to print out on the serial monitor that there's a new client. While the client is connected, if the client is available, it's going to go through and it's basically going to read the string that is provided to us. So when we start talking about this whole read string, that's essentially the URL that's being sent to this particular device, and it's going to parse it and it's going to read through it, and then based off of what it sees there, we then can trigger physical events in our Arduino device. So we go all the way down here. Again, this is all kind of copy and paste. If you want to know more about it, again, do some Google research. It's kind of interesting, kind of not. The big thing is past this. So if C equals next line. So basically, when information is being sent between the browser or the computer that's connecting to the Arduino and the Arduino, it's sending information back and forth. Basically, it's looking for this N. As soon as it sees the N, it's then going to go into what the Arduino is going to do, right? So basically, this top part here, is, what did I do? Edit, undo. Oh, anyways. So this top part here, this is the connection between the computer and the Arduino. This down here is what happens after the connection has occurred. So what we're going to do here is this is where we're going to plug in what the command should be. So if read string, so the read string is created when the client computer connects to the Arduino, we're going to use this index of. So basically what the index of does is it looks for information in the string. So this is the string. We're going to look in the string, and so we're going to look for this. So question mark green. So what we're going to say here is if question mark green is greater than 0. So if there is question mark green in the read string, we're going to digital write, green LED is going to be high, digital write, red LED is going to be low. We're going to delay for 1 millisecond. You do this in order to make sure everything works well. If there's no delay at all, you can get some weird quirks. Else if read string dot index of. So if there's question mark red, so greater than 0. So if question mark red is in that string, then green LED is going to go to low. So green's going to be turned off. Red is going to be turned on. Else if, so another else if, read string dot index of both. So if I send both, I want to turn green high and red high. Again, delay 1 second. Else if read string index question mark off. We're going to turn them both off, delay 1, and then else. So basically, if any other command essentially gets sent to the Arduino Uno with Wi-Fi, then on the serial monitor, we're going to print a problem, and then we're going to print out what the read string was. So basically, so we know if somebody's sending weird commands. Then we're going to blank out. So this is basically blanking out the read string. So for the next client, the next communication, we're going to delay for 1 second. We're going to stop that particular client once that's been dealt with. And then we're going to print out, serial print out, client has been disconnected. So this is basically what the code looks like. Again, what you can do is you can copy and paste this code, and then you can change. This is what you change. These things right here is what you change, and then you change what you want the Arduino to do, and go from there. So with that, let's actually go over and use wget to try to trigger things to happen on this particular Arduino. So the first thing that I want to show you here is that basically all we are doing is sending a URL to this Arduino. So we can use like a web browser. So I can do 10.0.1.15 / question mark, and then I can say, let's say red. So I only want the red to be turned on. And when I do that, we will see now that only red is on, green has been turned off, but as far as the web browser is concerned, it fails out because it doesn't get a result that it wants. I can sit here and I can do green, so I can simply type in green. I hit enter. We can now see green turned on, red turned off. But again, you know, this system really isn't built for a web browser, so the web browser itself isn't getting anything back. I can simply do off, and this will now turn them both off, right? So I do want you to understand that you can send commands basically just through a web browser. All we're doing is we're connecting to the Arduino, and then it's reading the additional part that we give it, basically everything in front of that /. But in this particular method, basically doing it this way, this is a very tedious way to have to interact with the Arduino, and isn't really good for coding or scripting or anything else. So if we go over and we actually go to the command line here, so from here at the command line, we can then type in commands using wget to get the same results. So to type in a command, we're going to do wget, then we're going to do space -- tries equals 1. So again, you want to make sure that when you do the try, you always make it 1. Then we used HTTP :/ 10.0.1.15 question mark, and let's just turn both lights on so we get something cool. So both lights, I hit enter, and we can see now both lights are on. I can do the same thing but turn red instead, and now only the red light is on. I can do green instead, now the green light is on. I can do both being off, and now they're both off. So basically that just shows you now that using wget, you are able to send commands, and again, you're not having to go through the full web browser to do it. Why this is useful is, again, from a scripting standpoint, you can put this into any number of scripts. Again, I was using PHP, using shell_exec. Essentially, I mean, it's ugly. I will admit it might be a little bit ugly, but using shell_exec, I was able to send these wget commands from a PHP script in order to trigger events to happen on the Arduino device itself. So with that, let me then show you what happens if something fails out, right? So let's say we do this again. I don't know, but we just do Bob, right? So we just say Bob. So we do Bob. Obviously, it's going to fail. Nothing is going to happen. But again, from a troubleshooting standpoint, we want to know if there's issues. So that's where the serial monitor comes in. So since I have the Arduino still connected to the computer that I uploaded the code with, we can go to Tools, we can go to Serial Monitor. And now what we can see is when I did Bob, so basically when I typed in the question mark Bob, we then see a problem, and this gets printed out in the serial monitor, right? So we can see get green up here and client disconnected, get off up here, client disconnected, get Bob, and then we see that there's a problem. So we have that problem, the else in the code, and we can see that, okay, well, that's a problem. Why the hell is somebody trying to do something with our Arduino using the Bob command? Again, if I do something else, such as oh, I don't know, let's say I wanted to turn on a blue color, so I type in blue and I hit enter. Well, we can see here, again, it pops up with that else, get blue. And so I can see, basically I can see, is the issue that I'm fat fingering something? I go back and I can take a look at the code and go, oh, I misspelled one of the colors. You know, there's a different text than I meant there to be. So that's basically all that's required in order to use wget in order to trigger events and basically trigger things to happen on your Arduino. And I think it's a pretty nifty, neat tool. Don't beat me up too hard. Don't beat me up too hard. Oh golly, old timers. Don't beat me up too hard. I know this probably isn't the best way to go about doing this. In a production environment, let me say in a production environment, this may not be the best way about going about doing this, but it works. It's incredibly easy to use. You don't have to understand any additional technologies. Basically, you just have to be able to install, wget from a repository, and from there it works. Once wget is on your Linux distribution, you can either just call it from the command line, you can call it from any number of scripts. Again, with something like PHP, you can use shell_exec in order to call it. It is a very, 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 very simple way to send a URL to the Arduino so the Arduino can parse it and then do something based off of the information that it's received. I know I'm going to get some hate from people. Oh, I've been doing these little PHP applications where I do in HTML, I auto refresh using HTML just because it's an easy way to create a dashboard. So basically you have a dashboard. In order to have the dashboard auto refresh, in order to give you real-time information, had to figure out a way to do that for my students. And basically it's like, oh, you know what? It's built into HTML. So since you know HTML already, here's a line of code to get your HTML document to auto update itself in whatever time period you tell it to do it. Oh my golly. Oh my golly, I get so much hate for that. Why are you doing it that way? That's stupid. And it's like, because my people know HTML, right? They already know HTML. I'm trying to explain this other concept to them. This is a simple way to do it. So again, that's where I kind of look at this with wget. Is this the best way to do it? I have to say, it's not horrible. It's actually not horrible. It's not a god-awful way of doing it. But no, it's probably not the best way to do it in like a production environment. But if you're sitting there with a server, you don't want to install additional things, you don't want to deal with additional configurations, it is a very simple way to be able to trigger things with your Arduino without having to do a lot to get it to happen. So again, for the most part, I think wget is very useful. What's really cool with the wget, so if you've done other projects, you can actually have the Arduino itself essentially act as the web server, and then you connect to the Arduino, and then the Arduino prints out all the commands, and you can connect on links or things, and that's coming directly from the Arduino. The cool thing with something like this is basically you can create a web page on your server, and then you can interact with that page, and as you interact with that page, then that can be sending commands to your Arduino. Again, the other day I created a Wi-Fi remote control car, and what I did was I actually created the control panel with PHP and HTML that was sitting on the web server. When I clicked on different things on that control panel, it would then use wget, that shell_exec function in PHP, to then use wget to send the commands to that little Wi-Fi remote control vehicle. And so it was a way I could design a relatively decent little web interface for the remote control car using the full lamp stack, but then still be able to send commands to that remote control car. So those are some of the kinds of things to think about. So this is an interesting thing. Again, a good way to play with being able to interact with your little Arduino Uno Wi-Fi. Definitely take a look at it. If at the end of the day you don't want to keep using it, no problem. But it's a tool. It's a tool in your toolbox. So anyways, as always, I enjoy doing this class. Look forward to seeing you at the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to eliTheComputerGuy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.